Haley, thank you for joining Scripps News.
Of course, thanks for having me.
A lot of attention today on the border. You have both President Trump and Biden down there. President Trump has said that nothing should be done until after the election. Do you think that it all gives some sort of political opening to Joe Biden and Democrats on an issue that they honestly are struggling with right now?
We can't wait one more day to do something on the border. When I was governor of South Carolina, we passed the toughest illegal immigration law in the country. President Obama sued us over it, and we won. We have got to get it done. The first thing I would do is put a national e-verify in place so that every business has to prove that the people they hire are in this country legally. We need to defund sanctuary cities once and for all. I would put 25,000 Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. We need to go back to the Remain in Mexico policy so that no one steps foot on U.S. soil, and instead of catch and release, we'll go to catch and deport. The problem is Joe Biden got us into this situation where 9 million illegals have come across the border. More fentanyl came across last year that would kill every single American. But then look at what Donald Trump did. He went, and when they had a border bill, which was good because it strengthened asylum laws, which 3 million came in under Trump's watch. We need to strengthen asylum laws. But the weak part was it didn't have Remain in Mexico, and it had a 5,000 person threshold. Congress should have gotten a room and not come out until they passed a strong border bill. But because Trump told them not to pass anything, now they're waiting till after the election. The American people can't afford to wait. They need to get it done. Congress needs to do their job, and Trump needs to stay out of it.
The Supreme Court yesterday said that they would hear the Trump presidential immunity case April 22nd. By that point, 80% of the delegates for the Republican Party have been awarded. Have you at all been disappointed that all these legal challenges are taking so long?
Well, I mean, he's going to continue to be in a courtroom for the rest of the year. And that's the problem is Republicans, if they're really focused on winning, we've got to make sure we can do that. There's no surprise when you look at any of the polls. He's down in the polls. On his best day, it's margin of error. I defeat Joe Biden by 18 points. That's bigger than the presidency. That's House and Senate. And so, by them doing this, I think it's fine that Supreme Court's taking it up. But look at how many other court cases, and more than that. The fact that he spent $60 million in campaign contributions on his legal fees, and now he's going to use the RNC as his legal slush fund. It's a problem.
Is this a bigger problem? Because if you look at the timeline now, if you hear this in April, and then maybe the case goes, we're looking at the summer, the fall perhaps, does this bolster the argument that this is a huge problem for Republicans if you have a presidential nominee who it's September and is in a courtroom with Jack Smith? I
mean, look, some of the court cases, I think some of the political cases have been political in nature, overly political, and some he's going to have to defend himself. But I think it's important that all of that come out now so that we're not dealing with it later. I think he's hoping it comes out later so that he can make it all go away. But either way, we've got a problem on our hands. I mean, chaos follows Donald Trump wherever he goes. We continue to see this play out. And we can't be a country in disarray and a world on fire and go through 4 more years of chaos. We won't survive it. How
much of a priority do you think it should be for these cases to get resolved before November, regardless or not?
I just think they need to do things quickly. If it's hearing a case, do it quickly. If it's an appeal, do it quickly. But the court cases take the time they're going to take, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
You made an interesting comment this week where you said it's very possible that the Republican Party is sort of shifting away from traditional conservative values. You look at what's going on with this campaign, Mitch McConnell stepping down, even Ronna McDaniel at the RNC. Do you think there's still room in the Republican Party for leaders to have what we consider traditional Republican values, a lot of the stuff that you're running on right now?
Absolutely, and I think that's why you see I get 30 to 40% of the vote in the early states is what we're trying to do is grow that, because we have to look at the fact the Republican Party used to be the party of fiscal discipline. We used to be the party of smaller government. The problem is under Donald Trump, he changed all that. He put us $8 trillion in debt in just 4 years, more than any other president. He claims it was COVID. That was less than 20% of it. But he didn't shrink government. He grew government on his watch. And then you look at what's happening with national security. It used to be peace through strength. Now we see that under Donald Trump, he's changing the Republican Party to make it more isolationist. He's siding with Putin over our allies that stood with us at 9/11. And then you see that he's going even further in elections, and he's going to make the RNC just about him instead of winning races up and down the ticket. That's a problem for all of us. Because you look at states, so many state houses have been lost since he's been president. We've lost in 2018, we lost in 2020, we lost in 2022. At some point we have to look and realize that maybe Donald Trump's the reason Republicans continue to lose.
And but that 30-40%, that is not the majority of the Republican Party, and that's why I think we're seeing people like McConnell have to step down. Isn't that kind of evidence that there's just not room in Donald Trump's Republican Party for leadership that is anyway opposed to him?
I mean, he made it very clear when he said anyone who supported me was barred permanently from MAGA. Well, that's the problem. If there's a president of the United States, your job is to bring people into the fold, not push people away. And what we've seen is the people in the Republican Party, it's shrinking because he's pushing people out of the party. That's why we have so many independents now. They feel like the Republican Party doesn't represent them. That's why we're not getting suburban women. That's why we're not getting a lot of the people that we used to have. Republican Party needs to be a big tent. We should be bringing in as many people as possible, not pushing them away. And I do think there's a place for a voice like mine. I'm giving people an option. And you're seeing that wherever we go, there are people who are saying we don't want this. The early states have voted. A lot of states are getting ready to vote, and we're going to see what they have to say.
Anyone that you would like to see step up, become the next Senate Republican leader?
I'm not going to get into that fishbowl. I think what I'd like to see is results coming out of Congress. You look at Congress, they've only given us a budget on time 4 times in 40 years, which is a problem because the American people don't appreciate that. I have long said that, even though Donald Trump's standing with all the congressional members, this is the same Congress who hasn't done anything for us. This is the same Congress who's grown our debt. This is the same Congress who I'm pushing for term limits. I'm pushing for mental competency tests for anyone over the age of 75. I'm pushing that if they don't give us a budget on time, they shouldn't get paid. We've got to start having results and action happen in Congress. That just hasn't been happening.
If this campaign ends and you have the second most delegates, for some reason Donald Trump cannot be the Republican nominee, is that a compelling argument, do you think, for you ultimately filling that slot?
I don't even think like that. Right now I'm thinking about the state that I'm in. We're thinking about Super Tuesday. We're hitting as many states as we can. And this is just about bringing people into our fold. I mean, we have massive rallies wherever we go. We've got people who are passionate about wanting to save America. And we've got people even more passionate about the country that their kids are going to have. They see the fact that not only did the kids go through the trauma of COVID, but they see that they're stuck with this $34 trillion in debt. Kids are worried they're not going to be able to get a job or make ends meet. They don't know if they'll ever be able to afford a home. They're worried about wars breaking out. And they're sitting in a tent of anger and division and hatred in this country. And we've got to do better than that. Our kids deserve to know what normal feels like.
Well, let's talk about Super Tuesday. What does success look like for the Nikki Haley campaign?
We've always said we want to be competitive. That's what it looks like, is just continuing to be competitive. 70% of Americans have said they don't want Donald Trump or Joe Biden. 60% of Americans have said Donald Trump and Joe Biden are too old to be president. They're the 2 most disliked politicians in America. So, a lot of people are going to have their voices heard on Super Tuesday. We're going to look and continue to do that. And as long as we can keep it competitive, we're going to keep on fighting.
Yeah, I know one of your favorite questions on the campaign trail is what is the markers? Are you going to be a candidate on March 6th or what about March 12th, March 19th? But I do hear from voters who say, hey, I like Nikki Haley, but I'm just not sure if she's going to have the longevity. And I don't want to waste a vote, or I don't want to spend part of my day going out to vote for a candidate who might not be in the race later. Are there any assurances that you can give voters in states like where we are in Virginia that you're in it for the long haul?
I mean, I think what we're trying to do is look at how hard we've fought. There were 14 people in the race. We defeated a dozen of the fellas. I've got one more to catch up to. This is because we have a country to save. This isn't about, looking at who's going to get it or who's not going to get it. This is about making your values and your voice heard in a way that you want America to go. And so I think there are a lot of Americans who are saying we don't like the direction the country's going in. We've got to stop Joe Biden. We can't have a President Kamala Harris. We've got to have someone who can put in 8 years, day and night, with no drama, no vendettas, no vengeance, and just get work done for the American people. And so we're seeing support from all over the country. We welcome that, and we hope that they'll take 10 people to the polls to vote with them, because we're going to make sure it's a competitive day on Super Tuesday.
And then looking at Congress and the economy, we're seeing some pushback today on Speaker Mike Johnson because of a very short-term sort of deal to avoid a shutdown. What is your reaction both to seeing that from the House Republicans and just kind of the dysfunction that we've seen with continuing resolutions and this sort of governing from month to month to keep this place open?
Unacceptable, irresponsible. It's why I've said this is Congress's one job is to give us a budget on time. Only 4 times in 40 years have they given us a budget on time. I will tell them, if you don't give us a budget on time, you don't get paid. But more than that, we've got to start paying down this debt. We've got to stop. Look at what Republicans did. They opened up pet projects and earmarks for the first time in 10 years, pushing through 7,000 of them last year. That's why the accountant and me will make sure that we stop the spending, we stop the borrowing, we'll eliminate the pet projects, and I'll veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels. And then we're going to take as many federal programs as we can and send them down to the states. That way we dramatically reduce the size of the federal government, but we empower people on the ground. Think education, think healthcare, think welfare, think mental health. If we cut those strings and send it down, it's better that it's decided closest to the people than bureaucrats in D.C. We have to shrink the size of government.
Governor Haley, thank you so much. Stay safe on the campaign trail.